Hi, I'm Rizome Kalingin, and today I will share to you the methods of waste disposal and its advantages and disadvantages. I will also provide some examples of solid waste management. But before we start, let us first know what is waste disposal. Waste disposal includes the processes and actions required to manage waste from its inception to its final disposal. This includes the collection, transport, treatment, and disposal of waste, together with monitoring and regulation of the waste management process and waste-related laws, technologies, and economic mechanisms. In short, waste disposal is the decision or process that includes how waste can be minimized, collected, and treated. Garbage accumulation has never been such of a concern in the past, but due to globalization and industrialization, there is a need for a more efficient waste disposal method. These are some of the methods that are used today. The first one is landfill. In this process, the waste that cannot be reused or recycled are separated out and spread as a thin layer in low-lying areas across a city. A layer of soil is added after each layer of garbage. However, once this process is complete, the area is declared unfit for construction of buildings for the next 20 years. Instead, it can only be used as a playground or a park. Now, let us check the advantage of landfill. The first advantage of landfill is that landfills are an excellent energy source. When trash accumulates and begin to break down, carbon dioxide and methane are produced. These gases can be taken out, filtered out, and used for energy production. The second advantage is modern landfills are eco-friendly. Older landfills are just open-air dump for nearly everything, but it isn't the case anymore. Thanks to the efforts of environmental experts and conservationists who brought in strict laws, regulations, and standards for landfill sites. The third advantage is it keeps cities, towns, and districts clean. Any city that doesn't have a landfill, or when people know there is no efficient waste management system in place, this would simply dump waste in vacant spots. This is very unhealthy to humans and most of all to the environment. With the help of proper maintained landfill facilities, local trash will be dealt with locally instead of shifting them to other countries. The fourth advantage is it keeps hazardous waste segregated. Landfills provide a place to dump recyclable and non-recyclable waste separately. Also, they provide a place to keep more hazardous materials that need to be segregated from the public. The fifth advantage is landfills are cheap. Garbage transport costs will be reduced as our waste will only have to travel a short distance to landfill. This will also reduce the amount of pollution caused by transporting rubbish. The sixth advantage is landfills support jobs in local business. An effective waste management system of any country is a $1 million activity with every stage needing workforce. More local landfills mean more job opportunities and better living for the locals. Buying waste in the grounds is advantageous in many ways. But what are the disadvantages associated with landfills? Let's check. The first disadvantage of landfill is that landfills are partially responsible for climate change. 1 ton of biodegradable waste can produce about 400 to 500 cubic meters of landfill gas. Landfill gas contains methane and carbon dioxide as the major constituents and traces of other gases. Methane is a greenhouse gas that is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Thus, increases the implication of global warming and climate change. The second disadvantage of landfill is that methane lights up easily. Methane is a highly inflammable gas. In an enclosed space with poor ventilation, it lights up quite easily and the entire landfill site can be on fire in seconds, and it can affect the environment negatively. The third one is that contaminate soil and water. Although it's not very common for protective membranes of landfills to rupture, it can be devastating when they do. Hazardous chemicals, gases, and toxins seep from landfills, get mixed with soil and groundwater, causing soil and water pollution. The fourth disadvantage is that landfill affects wildlife. Landfill sites have negative effects on plants and animals. Certain birds and animals feed on landfill sites. By doing so, they ingest plastics, aluminum, drywall, and other materials. They may cause detrimental and fatal for the birds in the long run. The fifth one is accidents can happen. Rain, spontaneous combustion of gases or materials, or excessive waste accumulation makes landfill sites vulnerable to collapses. The damages are deep and almost irreversible. The sixth disadvantage of landfill is that landfills affect human health. Studies have been shown that people living near or prolonged exposure to landfills have been linked to cancer, respiratory disorder, and developmental defects in children. Short-term exposures to ammonia and hydrogen sulfide in the air can cause eye, nose, and throat irritation as well as asthma. Other reported health complaints include sleeping difficulties, weight loss, and chest pain. The second method is incineration. Incineration is the process of controlled combustion of garbage to reduce it to incombustible matter such as ash and waste gas. The exhaust gases from this process may be toxic, hence, it is treated before being released into the environment. This process reduces 90% and is considered as one of the most hygienic methods of waste disposal. In some cases, the heat generated is used to produce electricity. However, some consider this process not quite environmentally friendly due to the generation of the greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Let's check the advantages of waste incineration. The first advantages of incineration is it decreases quantity of waste. Incinerators can decrease the quantity of waste by 95% and reduce the solid quantity of the original waste by 80 to 85% depending on the components that were in solid waste. Therefore, incineration reduces the dependency on landfills. The second advantages is efficient waste management. Incineration plays a vital role in making waste management easier and more efficient. Incineration can burn up to 90% of the total waste generated and sometimes even more. The third advantage is production of heat and power. Incineration plants generate energy from waste that can be used to generate electricity or heat. The fourth advantage is that reduction of pollution. Research has shown that solid waste incinerators are less likely to pollute the environment than landfills. One particular study done during a 1994 lawsuit in the US showed that a waste incinerator location was more environmental friendly compared to landfill. The fifth advantage of incineration is that incinerators operate in many weather. Another advantage of incinerators is that they can function in any type of weather. For instance, during a rainy season, waste cannot be dumped in a landfill because the rain will possibly wash down poisonous chemicals into the ground and consequently create leachate, thus contaminating the underground water as well as the neighboring land. Let us also check the disadvantage of incineration. The disadvantage of waste incineration is that, first, it is expensive. The installation of an incineration plant is an expensive process, particularly the cost of constructing the infrastructure to the cost of operating the incineration plants are very high. Disadvantage is that pollutes the environment. Incinerators produce smoke during the burning process. The smoke produced includes acid gases, carcinogen dioxin, particulates, heavy metals, and nitrogen oxide. These gases are poisonous to the environment. Third disadvantage is damaging public health. According to the research, the communities where incinerators plants are built, its long-term effects come in the form of health hazards such as cancer, birth defects, reproductive dysfunction, neurological problems, and other health effects that are known to occur at very low exposures to many of the metals and pollutants released by incineration facilities. The disadvantage is that the possibility of long-term problems. Incineration does not encourage recycling and waste reduction. This is not a calculated strategy to any society. The point of focus should be on reducing waste and recycling most of it. Merely burning most of the waste without recycling some of it will only cause environmental damage because it may encourage more waste production. The fifth disadvantage of incineration is that ash waste can potentially harm people and the environment. Even though the ash that remains from the process can be comparatively small in quantity, it contains several poisons and heavy metals which requires further treatment. If not disposed of correctly, it can cause serious harm to the public and the environment. The third method is waste compaction. The waste materials such as cans and plastic bottles are compacted into blocks and sent for recycling. This process prevents the oxidation of metal and reduces airspace need, thus making transportation and positioning easy. Let us know the advantages of waste compaction. The first advantage of waste compaction is that it increases space. Waste compactors have space by making waste smaller and easier to store, turning bulky rubbish or recyclables into smaller sizes. Uncompacted waste is an absolute space killer, whereas compacted waste takes up a fraction of the space. This means storage or working space can be increased. The second advantage is lowering labor cost. Waste compactors only need a simple touch of a button to use. The compacted waste produced is also much easier to transport, as it's now one item rather than many loose pieces. Third advantage is it improves efficiency. Compactors are quick and easy to use. With a simple push of a button, you can have efficiently compacted packages of waste. You don't need to check if they're full like you do with bins, and they require incredible minimal skills to use. The fourth advantage is minimizing environmental pollution. As we've mentioned, waste compaction means a smaller physical volume of the waste in its entirety, which means fewer trips needed to collect it. A key benefit of this is smaller carbon footprint associated with your waste management, as it's fewer miles needed to drive between your site and either a landfill or recycling center. It's impressive how a simple change in physical space can have so many benefits. The fifth advantage is that cutting operational costs. By compacting waste, businesses cut operational costs by reducing waste volume. A smaller volume of waste equals a smaller volume of trips needed to collect it and fewer skips to store it, meaning less money spent on skip hire. Compacted waste, such as cardboard, is also easier to store. This means you don't have to pay for plastic bin bags that represents an inefficient and environmentally unsafe waste disposal method. Now, let's check the disadvantages. The first disadvantages is that disposal of the waste. Once trash is compacted and collected by garbage trucks, it may go to a town dump or to an incinerator, depending on local waste disposal regulations. Incinerated trash, if burned properly, passes the fumes from the burned garbage through a cleanser rather than directly into the atmosphere. The use of the town dump, however, may result in the excessive build-up of garbage. If all of the garbage that has compacted is biodegradable, collecting in a dump is less of a problem because over time the trash will degrade. If some of the compacted garbage is not biodegradable, this can become a problem that may prevent or interfere with the degradation of other trash. The second one is large amount of garbage. Garbage compactors reduce the needs for frequent trash pickup. This saves money for the city or community and saves time for the garbage trucks. The large collections of trash, however, will eventually begin to smell. This offensive odor could reduce the desire of potential residents to move into a property and encourage current residents to want to live. Despite the fact that most compactors are enclosed, the type of trash placed in the compactors and the length of time the trash sits there may result in the smell of the trash spreading beyond the property, especially in the warmer months or in humid climates. The third disadvantages of waste compaction is that less regulation. In large communities, garbage compactors are a wise investment, allowing many people to dispose of their trash while accommodating a 1 or 2 day a week pick-up from city trash disposal. Unfortunately, large garbage compactors in properties with hundreds of residents lack regulation, which often results in waste disposal problems. For example, despite many properties offering recycle bins alongside the garbage compactor, many residents do not separate their trash. Additionally, residents may overfill the compactor without waiting for the garbage to be compacted, resulting in strain on the motor or damage to the compactor. If the compactor breaks in a large property, many people simply pile up their trash, which is quietly unsightly. The next method is biogas generation. Biodegradable waste such as food items, animal waste, or organic industrial waste from food packaging industries are sent to biodegradation plants. They are converted to biogas by degradation with the help of bacteria, fungi, or other microbes. Here, the organic matter serves as food for microorganisms. The degradation can happen aerobically or anaerobically. Biogas is generated as a result of this process, which is used as fuel and residue is used as manure. The advantages of biogas generation. So the first advantages of biogas generation is that biogas is eco-friendly. Biogas is a renewable, as well as clean, and source of energy. Gas generated through biodigestion is non-polluting. It actually reduces greenhouse emissions. No combustion takes place in the process, meaning there is zero emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Therefore, using gas from waste as a form of energy is a great way to combat global warming. An advantage is that biogas generation reduces soil and water pollution. Overflowing landfills don't only spread foul smells, they also allow toxic liquids to drain into underground water sources. Subsequently, another advantage of biogas is that biogas generation may improve water quality. Moreover, anaerobic digestion deactivates pathogens and parasites. Thus, it also quite effective in reducing the incidence of waterborne diseases. Similarly, waste collection and management significantly improve in areas with biogas plants. This, in turn, leads to improvements in the environment, sanitation, and hygiene. The third advantage is that biogas generation produces organic fertilizer. The byproduct of the biogas generation process is enriched organic digestate, which is a perfect supplement to or substitute for chemical fertilizers. The fertilizer discharge from the digester can accelerate plant growth and resilience to diseases, whereas commercial fertilizers contain chemicals that have toxic effects and can cause food poisoning, among other things. The fourth advantage is that it's a simple and low-cost technology that encourages a circular economy. The technology used to produce biogas is quite cheap. It is easy to set up and needs little investment when used on a small scale. Small biodigesters can be used right at home, utilizing kitchen waste and animal manure. A household system pays for itself after a while, and the materials used for generation are absolutely free. The gas produced can be used directly for cooking and generation of electricity. This is what allows the cost of biogas production to be relatively low. The fifth advantage is that healthy cooking alternative for developing areas. Biogas generators save women and children from daunting tasks of firewood collection. As a result, more time is left for cooking and cleaning. More importantly, cooking on a gas stove instead of over an open fire prevents the family from being exposed to smoke in the kitchen. This helps prevent deadly respiratory diseases. Now, let us also check the disadvantages. The first disadvantages is that few technological advancements. Unfortunate disadvantage of biogas today is that the systems used in the production of biogas are not efficient. There are no new technologies yet to simplify the process and make it accessible and low cost. This means large-scale production to supply for a large population is still not possible, although the biogas plants operating today are able to meet some energy needs. Many governments are not willing to invest in the sector. The second disadvantage is that it contains impurities. After refinement and compression, biogas still contains impurities. If the generated biofuel was used to power automobiles, it could corrode the metal parts of the engine. This corrosion would lead to increased maintenance costs. The gaseous mix is much more suitable for kitchen stoves, water boilers, and lamps. The third disadvantage is that its effect of temperature on biogas production. Like other renewable energy sources, example solar and wind, biogas generation is also affected by the weather. The optimal temperature bacteria needed to digest waste is around 37 degrees Celsius. In cold climates, digesters require heat energy to maintain a constant biogas supply. The fourth disadvantage is that less suitable for dense metropolitan areas. Another biogas disadvantage is that industrial biogas plants only make sense where raw materials like food, waste, manure are in plentiful supply. For this reason, biogas generation is much more suitable for rural and suburban areas. The next method is composting. All organic materials decompose with time. Food crops, yard, waste, etc. make up for one of the major organic waste we throw every day. The process of composting starts with this organic waste being buried under layers of soil and then are left to decay under the action of microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi. This results in the formation of nutrients-rich manure. Also, this process ensures that the nutrients are replenished in the soil. Besides enriching the soil, composting also increases the water retention capacity. The advantage of composting is that, first, it is beneficial to the environment. One of the biggest advantages of composting is that it is eco-friendly. The process of composting is done right has minimal effects, if any, to the environment. For example, the aerobic composting and vermicomposting get rid of waste materials without any harmful byproducts. The second advantage is that better soil structure and higher water retention ability. After composting, the compost is beneficial to the soil as it enhances its structure and helps to improve its water retention. The compost can improve the quality of numerous soil types, enhancing the texture as well as nutrients, air, and water retention ability. The third advantage is that natural organic fertilizer. The compost, which is the end product of composting, is an excellent organic fertilizer for your plants. Since the compost is organic, it will break down over time. The surrounding plants will, in turn, feed on this disintegrating compost to make them healthier. The fourth advantage is that less costly. If you use this compost to apply to your plants, it means that you will need less synthetic fertilizer and chemicals. For this reason, your cost of maintaining your plants will go down. Also, you will not incur the cost of hiring haulers as you will do the composting at home. The fifth advantage is that anyone can compost. Another great thing about composting is that anyone can do composting. Whether you live in rural areas or the urban, composting is for everyone. If you are in the high-end urban areas and do not have any yard space, you can still do composting indoors using a special indoor composting bin. Despite having many advantages, composting still have some few drawbacks. Here are some disadvantages of composting that you should know. The first one is that it can be stinky and hazardous. In some of the methods we have mentioned above, they produce an awful smell. For example, in aerobic composting, one of the byproducts of the process is methane gas. This gas has a very unpleasant odor and can make the environment around it inhabitable. The second disadvantage is that it's unattractive. The creation of a compost pile in your backyard might erase the beauty of the hard work for landscape. And although you might want to buy a compost bin which is tidier, it may still affect the arrangement of things and take up space for other things. The third disadvantage is that harmful to the environment. If these waste materials end up in landfills, they produce a lot of gases that have adverse effects in the environment. In the case of anaerobic composting, the methane released into the atmosphere has the effect of trapping heat, which may lead to global warming. The fourth disadvantage is that it consumes both time and energy. The process of composting, from collecting the waste into a pile to regularly attending to the pile, might be time-consuming. You will have to be checking on the composting now and then to ensure that the decomposition takes place properly. Last but not the least method is vermicomposting. Vermicomposting is the process of using worms for the degradation of organic matter into nutrient-rich manure. Worms consume and digest the organic matter. The byproducts of digestion, which are excreted out by worms, make the soil nutrient-rich, thus enhancing the growth of bacteria and fungi. It is also far more effective than traditional composting. The advantages of vermicomposting is that, first, it's fast. Depending on the environment, when you compost with worms, your compost should be ready and waiting within 2 to 3 months per year. Second advantage is that more and more worms. Once the composting cycle has completed, you'll have a lot more worms to play with. Worms, again, given the right environment, will double in population within around 90 days. So that means if you leave your compost for 3 months, you'll have 100% more worms than when you first started. Not at all bad going. You can add those extra worms to your garden to encourage further vermicomposting. The third advantage of vermicomposting is that you can do it outside or inside. Yes, you can vermicompost either outside or inside. In fact, if you really are an extra keen vermicomposter, you could place your composting bins directly underneath your kitchen sink. You just need to be sure that all organic content that's added to your composting bins below the sink is cut into small pieces. This helps to speed things and reduces the potential for a rather bad odor to make its way throughout your home. Now, let's check the disadvantages of vermicomposting. The first one is fruit flies. Yes, while they are completely harmless, fruit flies can be annoying. And there's no doubt at all that organic compost, whether outside the home or inside, can and will attract fruit flies. You can reduce or even eliminate the problem though. Add food scraps in small quantities, and if your composting bins are outside, cover over the top of the organic matter with some soil. The second disadvantage is that pathogens. Because of reduced buildup of heat, vermicomposting encourages pathogens more than when using a normal composting method. The heat generated from traditional composting method does help to kill off the bacteria, including E. coli. The third disadvantage of vermicomposting is that it costs. While the cost involved with vermicomposting is relatively low, there is an initial price tag involved. You need to invest in beans, or perhaps you may have some already. And if you can't get enough worms from your garden, you'll have to invest in those too. Now, let's proceed to the second part of this video, which is all about solid waste management. So what is solid waste management? Solid waste management is a term that is used to refer to the process of collecting and treating solid waste. It also offers solution for recycling items that do not belong to garbage or trash. As long as people have been living in settlements and residential areas, garbage or solid waste have been an issue. Waste management is all about how solid waste can be changed and used as a valuable resource. Solid waste management should be embraced by each and every household, including the business owners across the world. The industrialization has brought a lot of good things and bad things as well. One of the adverse effects of industrialization is the creation of solid waste. The negative effects of having poor waste management is that soil, water, and air pollution can all be a result of improper waste disposal, and of course when either of them becomes contaminated with the hazardous materials. Not only thus, this contribute to the creation of greenhouse gas effects, but also causes significant harm to the marine and wildlife. Let's proceed to the sources of solid waste management as well as its examples. The first one is domestic solid waste. Commonly known as trash or garbage, refuse or rubbish, is a waste that consisting of everyday items that are discarded by the public. Inorganic waste consists of paper, corroded cardboard, plastic, glass, wood, and metal products such as drink cans. The second one is industrial waste. Industrial waste is the waste produced by industrial activity, which includes any materials that is rendered useless during a manufacturing process, such as that of factories, mills, and mining operations. Types of industrial waste includes dirt and gravel, masonry and concrete, scrap metal, oil, solvents, chemicals, scrap lumber, even vegetable matter for restaurants. Industrial waste may be solid, semi-solid, or liquid in form. It may be hazardous waste or non-hazardous waste. Industrial waste may pollute the nearby soil or adjacent water bodies and can contaminate groundwater, lakes, streams, rivers, or coastal waters. Next is agricultural solid waste. It are usually generated through agricultural activities involving preparation, production, storage, processing, and consumption of agricultural produce, livestock, and their products. Agricultural solid waste are produced via farming activities. Example of agricultural waste include crop residues, weeds, leaf litter, sawdust, forest waste, and livestock waste. Let's proceed to plastics, glass, metals, e-waste, etc. These terms applies to the consumers and business or electronic equipment that is near or at the end of their useful life. E-waste is heterogeneous in composition and consists of a range of materials including plastics, glass, and metals. Examples of electronic waste include, but not limited to, TVs, computer monitors, printers, scanners, keyboards, mice, cables, circuit boards, lamps, clocks, flashlight, calculators, phones, answering machines, digital or video cameras, radios, VCRs, DVD players, MP3, and CD players. Next is medical waste. Medical waste is a subset of waste generated at healthcare facilities such as hospitals, physicians' offices, dental practices, blood banks, and veterinary hospitals or clinics, as well as medical research facilities and laboratories. Generally, medical waste is healthcare waste that may be contaminated by blood, body fluids, or other potentially infectious materials and is often referred to as regulated medical waste. Example of medical waste may include paper towels or wipes contaminates, gloves used in procedures, syringes without needles, syringes with needles or sharp objects, bandages or dressings with small amount of dry blood or fluid, and any other materials from medical care. Next is construction waste. Waste generated by construction activities such as scrap, damaged or spoiled materials, temporary and expendable construction materials, and aids that are not included in the finished project, packaging materials, and waste generated by the workforce. Sewage sludge is the semi-solid residue from municipal waste water treatment plants. Sewage sludge is the residue resulting from the treatment of wastewater released from various sources including homes, industries, medical facilities, street runoff, and businesses. Sewage sludge is the solid, semi-solid, or slurry residual materials that is produced as a byproduct of wastewater treatment processes. Typical construction waste products can include insulation and asbestos materials, concrete, bricks, tiles and ceramics, wood, glass and plastic, bituminous mixtures, coal tar and tar, metallic waste including cables and pipes, soil-contaminated soil, stones and dredging spoil, gypsum, cement, paints and varnishes, adhesive and sealants. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for watching and stay safe everyone. Bye!